Hello everyone, and welcome to another SEO Talk episode where we discuss all things related to SEO and organic traffic acquisition. My name is Alexandra Tachalova and I'll be your host. And today, well, sadly we are having a dull and rainy day here in Eindhoven, Netherlands. However, I can't be more excited about today's topic. And today we are going to talk about SEO and content marketing strategies for 2025. So we are going to cover what you need to do next year, right? What kind of challenges you need to overcome and anything else that might help you put together a stellar content marketing strategy. As usual, we have a terrific lineup of guest speakers and I can't wait to talk to them. Hi, Trish, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. It is a very chilly, gray, rainy day in Washington, D.C. as well. So yeah, I join you.
Rain.
Yes, join you in the rainy weather.
Well, I live in the Netherlands, so for me, it's not really a big surprise.
Daily thing.
Yeah, daily thing. So could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So hi, I'm Trish. I'm the founder of Big Sister Marketing. You probably have seen me on LinkedIn. I'm also the head of content at a company called DJUST, which is a B2B e-commerce software currently located in Paris, France. And I'm very happy to be here today to talk content for 2025. Very exciting.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Trish, today. Hi, Luca. How are you doing today?
Hello, everyone. Hi. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm doing great.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes. So I'm Luca Tagliaferro. You probably seen me on LinkedIn or in Brighton, if you were in Brighton and back in October. And I'm an SEO consultant. And I'm very, very happy to be here today. And I can't wait to talk about SEO in 2025.
Thank you very much. And we'd love to say, hello to all our guests, to Daryl, that is also in Chile, Inderburg, and to Nia from New York. I hope the weather treats you better there. And we also have Reese from DC. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, and hi, Finbar from Nigeria. So I hope the sun.
All over the world.
Yeah, so across the world. Okay, so my first question will be about the biggest lessons that you've done, guys, in 2024 so far, right? Because it's still November, right? We still have 1 month, so something might happen as well. So, and Luca, I will start with you. What will be your biggest lessons from this year around SEO and content marketing?
Yeah, that's a very good question because some things are very, very clear in 2024, at least with regards to the work I do with my clients. I can't speak for everyone, but what I've seen with my 5 clients is that nobody cares about it. Okay, expertise, experience, authority, trust. It's not a ranking factor.
Why so? As a user, I'm not pretty sure that it doesn't matter because whenever you open a website, and I've recently, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I've just had a problem with, one of Transavia, right? I wanted to buy a ticket and the site wasn't working. So that was a terrible, situation. But okay, for sure. Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, because I think it's a little bit controversial because people put a lot of effort into it, but it's not really something that made a difference in the ranking, in the traffic of the work I do with my clients. And we also, in my opinion, the way that it is thought and delivered right now, it's about content. So if you show expertise, and this is very much linked to the topical authority concept, which is still a hot topic in SEO. So I don't think the way to show authority is something that has to do with content, because anyone can write 20, 30, 50 articles about anything. That doesn't make you an authority. It's about links. It's about backlinks. It's about what people say about you. It's about your brand. And obviously, to get links and to get brand mentions and to build your brand online, you have to write content. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. But Google looks at the overall picture. It doesn't look just the number of articles you wrote, because if I start suddenly to write about banana milkshake, for example, and I write 50 articles about that, how to make it, what kind of ingredients I need, and what kind of fruits do I need, that doesn't make me an expert on that topic, because I never shared anything about this before online. But if I write about SEO and I write about things that I've been doing for over 10 years, then that makes much more sense. So we also have seen examples of websites that are just targeting keywords and search volumes for the sake of ranking. One of them, I think it was called House Fresh. It was completely destroyed by Google. They say that they were applying the heat concept on everything they wrote. I don't have too much information about that, but like the way that they lost traffic, to me, it means that it is not very important.
Yeah, may I ask, well, thank you very much, first of all, for sharing this. May I ask something about links, right? Just because you mentioned that, and since, right, I'm also into LinkedIn, because for me, right, I might have a bit different perspective on this, but for me, what we've seen so far is that, okay, a lot of, especially if we talk about direct to consumer businesses, they've been relying heavily on getting quite easy links from media outlets. It doesn't matter, organically, through paying, to these websites. When I say organically, whenever they were doing guest posts, for instance, they were doing guest posts. But, to be completely honest, I don't really see much value in these links, right? And then we're ending up with the links that are very hard to deliver, right? Either through digital PR or through, basically not through link building, I would say, but rather than through marketing activities, right? And so what kind of maybe approaches your clients are trying to implement, or what kind of links are they going after?
Well, I build links essentially using the three most popular techniques and strategies, which is guest posting, niche edits, and digital PR. And they all have a different degree of difficulty. Digital PR being the most difficult because you have to deal with journalists who don't care anything about SEO. So they just want to. My clients build links this way, and the way that we build them depend heavily on what the market is doing and what the situation looks like for their competitors. So, if a website is new, for example, we go heavy on digital PR. But if a site is already established and already has a lot of traffic, we don't do that. We focus on other tactics. So we assess first before we do anything.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Luca. That makes a lot of sense. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for joining us.
I had some issues with StreamYard. It wouldn't open for some reason.
So sorry to hear that. Yeah, no worries.
Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, we are just to keep you right in the loop of the conversation. We are discussing the biggest challenges of 2000. Of the current year, basically of 2024 that we faced so far. And maybe you want to jump on this conversation and share your biggest challenge that you faced so far around content marketing and SEO.
Yeah, sure. Luca, are you still talking, or did you want me to?
Yeah, no, go on. I finished.
Okay. Where would I start? I'd say obviously the biggest challenges that I can see is that SEO as a marketplace was already quite heavily fragmented, because you've got an industry that's worth billions of dollars a year that's been growing exponentially year on year. The SEO industry has grown every single year for the last 20 years. But because it's not a curriculum industry, it's hard for new people to come in and get to grips, because there's just so much information out there. And then obviously with the way that AI has come along and started disrupting everything from coding to web design to SEO to automations. I think the challenge is more that there's now more misinformation out there than ever, which is hard for like people who may be wanting to come into the SEO industry. And, you know, now you've got people posting carousels, like demonstrating programmatic spam and things like that, or making SEO look easy by using AI to automate things. And I think that's one key challenge. And I think the other key challenge is on the creativity aspect. I think we live in a world where most people would love to get rich quick, or people want to make more money and do less. But equally, with the evolution of AI comes the other side of it. So the thing that I'm seeing more and more of is people using AI to basically create programmatic spam. And then you've even now got people, you know, on the content marketing side of things, using AI to create social content, and then pods, and then AI comments on the other side. And I think these things are just really putting a lot of mud in the water. And I think we need to start thinking from a responsibility point of view for 2025 about how we get things back to a cleaner state.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for touching the topic about AI content creation. I think it's one of the hottest nowadays, right? Just because we are all also suffering a little bit from it, because, you know, the level of spam is also increasing that we get because of this, right? So the noise that kind of, you know, one more time, only a few people can really use it in the right way. And when, you know, we have the rest of the marketers, or whatever we can call them, that are not really kind of just using it in a very basic way, most probably. And Trish, since you are more on a content marketing side, right?
Yep.
And I think AI content and the overall growth of this type of content is most probably what really bothers you and disrupts your workflow.
Yes and no. I think that because I'm coming from a B2B background, I think that there's less spam and less of this noise. I do think there's a huge question of ethics that needs to come back into marketing, and talking about ethical marketing, responsible marketing, kind of like the turn that we had after like cold mailing has become a little bit passé these days because of the ethics that were involved in, you know, spamming and scrapping and all these kinds of things. So I think those questions are going to come back up again naturally as time goes on. But for me, AI is more, especially in the B2B world, is much more of a useful tool. And I think it's being used a hair more responsibly. And feel free to disagree with me, Luca and or Daniel, around this. But for me, it's been an exceptional tool. And yes, there are people that are using it irresponsibly. But AI has greatly improved how much I can do and in such little time. But in terms of SEO, I think it can be a real hindrance outside of that. So yeah.
What do you do exactly with AI when it comes to content marketing, may I ask?
Sure. So basically, how I construct most content strategies these days is the focus on a unified content strategy in general. So we're talking about using one channel that produces all of the evergreen content. Usually this is around SEO, but not always, which is actually going to be my biggest lesson from 2024, was that SEO is not necessarily the best choice for every single company.
I agree.
And that can be a very challenging when you're an SEO person and someone who loves it. It can be very challenging to be confronted with the idea of like, oh, maybe this isn't the best choice, you know, for this client, company, etc. Anyway, so going back to AI, thinking unified content strategies, that there's one evergreen channel that produces all of the unique, high quality, generally expensive content, and recycling it down to every single channel, and using AI to generate automatic briefs depending on, you know, the evergreen content, whether it's generating a TikTok script, whether it's generating a brief for a podcast, whether it's generating a brief for a white paper, a webinar, etc., whatever other channels that you're working on, that automation has significantly decreased the time from creation to production. And I think that it is an extremely useful tool. It can also be limiting in some ways, that if you are a very creative, highly creative person, and you have a highly creative team, it can almost hinder their creativity to be limited by a script that AI has generated. But again, if you're using custom GPTs and you're prompting everything properly, it can be a great starting point. So that's generally how I'm using AI right now.
Yeah, it all makes sense. And I think, one more time, if you can automate something, and if you have the right script, the right prompt that, you can use, then why not? And I also, use it quite heavily whenever I want to just do some kind of, generic things, I would say, but based on what I've already delivered. And, the initial thought is unique, right? Which is very important.
Absolutely.
Because, a lot of people, they kind of, they don't really do the homework, which is very important, I think.
Yeah.
And
the
then,
input,
yeah.
The input is not quality, therefore the output is low quality.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to step back a little bit back to SEO, and I want to ask about the most recent Google update, right? What have you seen so far there? Are you satisfied with it, guys? So Daniel, what do you think? Do you see any significant changes in rankings? Do you agree with the reprioritization that happened?
No, I think they're just lurching from one sticking plaster to another. So I don't really think really think that they have the level of control now that they used to. I think the biggest thing is that ever since RankBrain came along, they've been building more and more machine learning and AI into how they calculate and evaluate things. I think it's impossible for them to create SERPs that will keep everyone happy, because you impact one group of people only for another group of people to suffer. I think the problem is, especially ever since HCU, everyone is hanging on to some form of a reversal that the Google Creator Summit, they basically just said that's not going to happen. But they promised that they would make things better. I don't really know how they're going to achieve that. But the August update and the November update were very tame. They're nothing like the HCU updates. I think for some of the audits that I've been doing, I saw August's core update bring some partial reversion from earlier updates. And then November's just not been much of an update at all. Some people are saying that the impact's probably going to be delayed a little bit. But to be honest, I think given how much Google has upset people, masses of communities, and given that we're on the fringe of Black Friday and the biggest shopping season of the year, I can't see this being an update where they're going to make many changes. So I think the last two updates have been very tame. November's, I've been looking at lots and lots of GSC accounts, seeing very little at the minute. I think the biggest change is on a couple of publications, informational content, but certainly nothing on the e-commerce front.
Yeah. I also, Luca, do you want to add something?
No, I can confirm everything Daniel said. I was about to say almost the same thing. Yeah. So my clients, no changes whatsoever from this update. I think that the updates, this one in particular, came out because a lot of people complained about this, and there was a lot of evidence shared on social media, shared all over the place. This damaged businesses. So Google tried to say, now we're gonna, kind of improve things a little bit, even though at the end they disappointed again because they said don't expect anything from it, from the sites that were damaged before. So I really don't see anything good coming from it. So if people are expecting an increase in traffic and how we used to be before, that they shouldn't expect that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I've been waiting for some changes for Forbes actually, but I haven't seen them.
I think I'd also like to add a couple of bits here. So one of my specialisms, or at least the thing that I'm known for, is auditing. So I have access to hundreds of GSC profiles. I have a lot of data, so I get to look and see a lot of things. So I think March was probably the biggest update of the year. They tend to cycle update types. So generally, like within the space of a year, you'll typically get like one aggressive update, which changes a lot of things. And then over the course of the year, you'll get updates that are more of a whimper, or where they'll just have like a more narrow band focus. So I think March's update this year was a much bigger update. As we know, HCU is baked into all of the general core updates now. One other interesting thing, without sort of diverging too much here, but I think the reason that things have got the way they have, and this might be something for people to have a think about, I've done a lot of analysis on this and it all fits together, but what I think's happened, and the reason why Google is struggling to rein things in now, is because if you go back and look at the DOJ trial, Google openly admitted that it can't interpret content the way that a human can. So if I wrote an article around SEO and I gave it to 100 people, 80 people might say, yeah, it's okay, it's good. 20 people might say it's the worst thing I've ever read. So the problem is that an algo can't have a subjective opinion. Googlebot can't process a document and go, that's great. They can have evaluation factors. So I think what's happened is that when they rolled HCU out, they basically unleashed Google's use of histogram and telemetry data that they collect from Chrome, which basically helps them to understand what is helpful. The only way on this planet Google can determine whether something is helpful is through user behavior. So if you take that user behavior from them people, that is the most concrete way of knowing whether something is good or not. And that's when I come up with the term good content is not necessarily helpful content. And this is why so many people that had good content saw their sites decimated. But maybe the perception is, well, your content might be well written, but is it actually helpful? And I think the reason that UGC content did so well is because it typically is unbiased and it's a lot more real. Not saying that that's the case all the time, but if I wanted to get a phone review, people in a Reddit thread are more likely to be critical, highlighting the bad points, why you should buy it, why you shouldn't buy it. Whereas an article that has affiliate links is more likely to be biased. And I think what's happened with the updates now is that they're trying to tweak something that is very hard for them to control. If you go into your Google Chrome settings, because Chrome has more than 70% market share as a browser, there's actually settings in there that say make searches better. And the only way that they would know if searches are better, make searches and browsing better, the only way that they're going to know that is if they're collecting your telemetry data. So I think these updates they're doing now, they're like just trimming the fat on the outside. They're not doing anything overly aggressive.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing this, Daniel. And I can't agree about, user behavior factor, because, one more time, what I've learned from, the recent Google update, that not necessarily the non-form content is the best content, just because, right, if a user is looking for a specific answer, then you just need to provide the answer.
Yeah.
And Trish, what do you think about the most recent Google update? Have you noticed something interesting for you there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because right when the update came out, we saw a lot of volatility in the positioning, and we're still seeing actually a little bit. Things have stabilized quite a bit, but there's still some. I'm using keywords as the example because it's just the concrete example I can give of certain keywords that we were ranking on in a very stable way, very little volatility. And once the update came out, mostly in August, the August update, we're still seeing volatility. One day we're 50, one day we're 2, one day we're 30, one day, you know what I mean? And it hasn't really stabilized quite yet. And that's something to look at the content in for sure. But I think that we're still seeing a little bit of volatility, but we weren't generally affected. And none of the people that I work with were generally affected. As Daniel and Luca very much said, it's a smaller update in comparison, and it's not been anything outstanding outside of that little piece of volatility, which still hasn't quite stabilized. And so hopefully we'll see that. Hopefully with this update in November, maybe those things will stabilize, but we'll see.
Yeah, I also haven't noticed much changes, across the websites we've been working with. And on a general note, right, I haven't seen much changes in search engine results whenever you just search for something, right, on a regular basis. So, I guess maybe it was like sometimes, as I know, right, Google goes after very certain niches. So we might not work with that niches, right? Absolutely. And, as a result, you just don't really know what really happened or might happen, right, with that concrete niche. And I want to just a little bit circle back to our main topic about 2025, right? And I want to ask for maybe your biggest tip or your biggest kind of advice for those that are right now creating their strategies and preparing for 2025 with their content, SEO strategies, and so on. So, Trish, let me start with you. What will be your biggest advice?
I think we need a lot of focus in content right now. I think what I'm seeing in the market and from all the people that I speak to, all the people that I work with, is that there's a very huge lack of direction and focus in terms of content. We're getting very excited about the fact that we can do SEO, we can do socials, we can do all these different things all at once through AI and whatever. And we get very excited about it. And we start treating each channel, working in each channel like a silo, right? So each channel has its own strategy and each has its own X, Y, and Z, and it can be very disorganized and very ineffective and ineffectual because we're not thinking about, again, content from a holistic point of view, right? And a content strategy and a good content strategy is one that has direction, focus, timelines, and metrics, right? And so we don't want to get into this cycle as well of working on too many channels, not being able to measure anything, and then kind of just scaling without direction, right? And so my biggest tip for 2025 is do less, but more focused, and work with one evergreen channel that you then recycle down to every single other channel. And I say this all the time, and I will never stop saying it because you'd be shocked at how many companies and how many people don't have direction in their content strategy. And so it's about picking one channel, focusing on that one, right? Producing unique, high quality content and recycling it down to every single channel so that you're all channels are moving in the same direction in the same timeline, and giving it a focus of a topic per quarter, a theme per month, something to give everything a direction, focus, and certainly in terms of time, energy, and resources, so you're getting the most bang from your buck and measuring the return on investment of your content. Because again, it is very easy for lots of brand marketers like myself to get out of measuring the impact because we're just like, oh, it's for socials. Oh, it's X, Y, and Z. Oh, it's a podcast. Like we can't necessarily measure the impact on revenue or the impact on X, Y, and Z, right? But there are ways to do that and to ascertain how we are going to be able to make sure that we're getting the most out of our content, and recycling from top to bottom is the most effective way to do so. So.
Yeah. Well, I can't agree more with you, Trish. And I think, not necessarily what I would love to add necessarily that might be just, associated with sales. It might be associated with acquiring the right audience.
Yeah.
So, just really a random example that might help our listeners understand what I'm talking about. Because if you post something, about SEO or link building nowadays on LinkedIn, you get likes from people from, more or less Middle East regions, right? If you start to post just one of them, just out of my experience about digital fair, you get, likes from the audience you'd love to get, right? You'd love to engage with. It's just, more or less about choosing the right angle and the right topic, right? So, and nowadays I think also getting to, right, one more time, distributing your content to the right audience is one of the biggest challenges, because you don't really want to end up with, tons of impressions, but that are not really, your
Qualified.
Qualified your target audience.
100%. And thinking about content beyond ourselves is that we are not necessarily the consumer, right? And making sure that we are
into this trap, right?
So easy. It's so easy. And you can probably always find data to support that, right? But it's like, you are not your consumer necessarily. And so where are you producing enough content for where people actually consume, for what you're trying to do? Very hard question to ask yourself.
Oh yeah, I agree. So, well, let's keep the focus and let's kind of like align it with the right goals. Mm-hmm. What about you, Luca? What will be your biggest tip for 2025?
When it comes to content, I have done a lot of work into conversion rate optimization, which is not considered to be an SEO skill set, but I've done courses with the CXL Institute, and I worked with agencies that were doing conversion rate optimization when I was working for a brand. So this is something that a lot of people don't even consider in SEO. But given the fact that a lot of data suggests that we're going to get less traffic from Google going forward, especially with the introduction of Google overviews and AI.
Search engine now we have as well.
Yeah. So I think the focus should be more into trying to convert the traffic that we get and not getting like too much traffic. Because, for example, top of the funnel keywords for me in 2025 will not be a huge help for SEO, because they are answered by Google AI overviews anyway. So things like, for example, what is SEO, what is link building, this kind of open questions, they shouldn't be targeted, in my opinion. We should focus on bottom of the funnel where there is a clear intent for converting the user. But not only that, but also learning how to improve user experience, how to improve conversion rate, studying user psychology, user behavior on the website can bring a lot of benefits to the traffic that we're already getting. So the answer is not always more traffic, but it's more conversions. And this is a discipline that requires heavy preparation and is not easy to do, because I've seen people working on it. It's not easy at all. So it's not just about changing the color of a button to do an A/B test and see which one sticks. It's more about learning who your audience is and understanding why they behave in a certain way. That's why when I analyze the websites and the traffic, I also use a lot of tools like Crazy Egg and Hotjar to go into the heat maps and go into the other type of reports that we don't normally get from Search Console or Google Analytics. And sorry.
No.
So yeah, so I mean,
go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
This is what I would focus on going forward. We are expecting a lack of traffic, but that doesn't mean we have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for like the activation and empowerment of the user, right? I think that there's a huge market to be had, and that is like what content that we look at, not in traditional like content terms, right? But when we're talking like for SaaS companies, like in-app, when we're talking about freemium users or free trial users who want to convert into the paid, it's a lot about activation and empowerment of the user at that point as well. And that is not typical content that can fall definitely into a holistic content strategy in particular. So totally couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I think it's all about, right, capturing the demand, right, rather than, being a hub where you just get the traffic and then whatever, right? So really, and also if you even get this 100 visitors, then the question is why they are not converting, right? So it's most probably also about, finding the ways to capture them and to talk to them, right? To understand what are their reasons, right? And that's not really SEO, right? It's no longer just SEO. It's way bigger. It's just, a lot of marketing disciplines are involved in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. That's for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luca, for sharing this. Daniel, what will be your biggest advice, right, for the next year?
Well, I've already been working towards changing strategy. So one of the things that I'm a big advocate of is not creating content for the sake of it. So I think the point Luca made about the conversions from traffic of value is important, primarily because I spend so much of my life cleaning up sites where they've had SEO companies, they've churned out content at scale, seen short-term benefit from it in terms of traffic growth, no revenue
Daniel,
growth.
you have to talk with one of my clients. I'm trying to convince them to stop doing that. And they don't really, they recently told me that they need another SEO guy that will do another keyword research to do, another content hubs. I was like, gosh.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like a kid at school, who's got the most friends. And it's the same with traffic. Traffic is that, that vanity metric. But I think the problem is that whilst I don't agree with a lot of what Google's done, I do agree in that it should be a lot harder to rank rather than being able to create spam at scale. I think what needs to happen with content is we should create less, but create much more useful content, much higher quality content. And I think what's really important as well for people to consider is that we are going through a generational shift. The way that people consume content now is changing. And most consumers now, if they go to Google because they want to know about a product, maybe they want to know whether something is good or bad, they don't want to read a 5,000-10,000 word article. So the biggest shift is that because Google's ability to use machine learning and AI has made it so that you actually have to put in the work to create content that will, meet end user needs. I think moving forwards now, what people need to think of is creating something that adds maximum value in the shortest period of time. So Chat GPT for searches is good because you can ask it a question and you'll get a direct answer. Whereas if you do that on Google, you've really got to sift through AIOs, people also ask, or you have to go into a web page and then try and find the bit that's applicable to you. So I think if we look at society as an example, as we go on year, we all have less time because we're all busy doing more things. So with that generational shift, the days of people sitting there with a cup of tea and drinking a cup of tea while they read 5,000-10,000 word articles about why you should buy a pair of Nike running shoes, those days are disappearing. So what content should be and what we should be moving towards is, how do I condense the information into something that someone can consume quickly, and how can I add value to it? So one of the conversations that I was having the other day was that, we've got all this AI generation. So, why don't we produce content that is shorter form, still does the same thing as something that's longer form, and integrate, use AI to create some video content to support it, or create something interactive. So AI with natural human copywriting could be used to create content that people want to consume. But this whole content strategy that's still promoted to this day with programmatic spam is just a terrible idea. So 2025, it would always be focusing on a more sustainable strategy, create less content, create higher quality content, and inevitably, if you're creating less content, it's easier to manage because most of the sites that I've been working on cleaning up were pushing out 50, 100 blogs a month. after 3-4 years, you can imagine how much work it is to clean it all up. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daniel. Yeah, I think it's just really if you need to update all these content pieces, and most probably you really have to if you want to continue getting traffic. That's really you did continue working on producing one, and you're becoming a manager of the old content. So yeah, that is quite interesting, right? And most probably some of the websites that really have, such a big shift of, in their teams, in their content marketing teams.
It's just being intentional. You know what I mean? It's being intentional about what you create. And I think it's easier said than done, right? Because again, I work internally in company. So I'm not an external party. And so the problems that I face when you're trying to make this mindset shift from, okay, we know if we produce 100 articles a month, we're going to get traffic, right? And because we have traffic, in theory, that means we can bring this vanity metric back to investors and we can be like, look, we're succeeding, right? And so Daniel, I agree with 100% of what you're saying. But as someone who is internal, making this mindset shift among many different layers of people can be very challenging, right? So I think there's a mix of things to be done of, again, producing less content more intentionally, and then using it, as you said, to using that mixed AI human method to produce it on other channels. So you're still getting this holistic strategy while keeping up with production. I think there's a mix to be had there, because even internally, it's going to be a very hard sell to be like, okay, we know that we're going to get less traffic. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. In theory, your conversions should still be the same in theory. But when you have investors to come back to, like, it can be very hard to let go of those vanity metrics. So I think that it's being very intentional and being able to manage that change and internally educate people on what the difference in these strategies mean. Could be super interesting. Another conversation for another day.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's really not easy sometimes also to persuade all the stakeholders that are involved, in the process, and to convince them, right, to basically to take the same approach, right, that you see at the winning one. And the same goes about programmatic SEO, because I know that for some brands, right, it's obvious it works quite well. One more time, it all comes down to what kind of brand you represent and what kind of, right, pragmatic SEO campaigns you deliver. So I think it all has its pros and cons at the end of the day. And just to wrap this up, guys, I just want to ask you, what will be the best way to connect with you for our listeners? So I will start with Luca. Luca, what will be the best way to connect with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn every day, so you can come there. Or you can just send me an email. I'll reply.
Okay, thank you very much. What about you, Daniel? What will be the best way to connect with you? So
you can connect with me either on LinkedIn, or you can Google SEO audits, and you should see SEO-audits.io, and you can reach out to me through the website. But otherwise, yeah, LinkedIn. I'm on Blue Sky now. I've just started using that. So it seems like everyone all of a sudden has flocked there. I don't even know what my username is on there yet. So yeah, look me up. You use my LinkedIn, but I'll share my social handles via LinkedIn.
And what about you, Trish? What will be the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. Instagram, TikTok. I respond on all three. So yeah, you can get me on all the different socials.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me today. I had a pure pleasure hosting this conversation, and thank you very much for sharing your insights and just for being one more time so awesome. So thank you very much, and hope to see you at our next SEO Talk episode. Right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.